This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Alpha Natural Resources, an energy company dedicated to respecting the land. Alpha Natural Resources, we power the world through the energy of our people. Everywhere there are lighting poles, there's one more opportunity to save money. Intelligent Illuminations provides cost-effective wireless lighting solutions for roadway or area outdoor lights. Kanawha Valley Arena, Virginia's cowboy town, hosts Civil War reenactments, ATV rodeos, mud bogs, diesel truck pulls, and high school rodeo finals. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.
Welcome to This Week in Richmond, and a very special welcome to our two guests, Barry DuVal and Paul Koonce. I want to tell our viewers something about you, so I've got some notes for this. Barry DuVal is completing his third year as president and CEO of the Virginia Chamber of Commerce, but an extensive background in economic development before that. And so as we're going to be talking about business issues, we're delighted you're here. City Council in Newport News, Mayor of Newport News, Secretary of Economic Development, head of Kaufman and Knowles Consulting. I mean, quite a background, all of it for those years in what I would call in economic development and business issues. And Paul Koonce, celebrating, I believe, your fifth year in the position that you're in with the title of Executive Vice President of Dominion Resources, Chief Executive Officer of the Energy Infrastructure Group, and Chief Executive Officer of Dominion Virginia Power.
Yes, sir.
All of those titles and all of that suppose in keeping our rates, as we see, stable right now, for which we thank you. But you oversee the regulated part of Dominion that serves approximately 2.4 million customers, and you have extensive background too in business and in serving on all kinds of boards here in the greater Richmond area and throughout the state. Graduate of University of Tennessee, Knoxville. We welcome the two of you as we deal with business today. Previous show we dealt with agriculture. We'll not be going alphabetically, but we are starting A and B, but at some point we'll do education and healthcare and public safety and transportation and other major issues. But let's get into the show today on business issues. And as we get into the show, Barry, tell the viewers something about the Virginia Chamber. Many of them who are watching the show know, but some may not. Many of them are probably members of their local chamber. But what's the Virginia Chamber doing?
Well, David, let me thank you for having Paul and I here today to talk a little bit about business issues facing Virginia. The Virginia State Chamber of Commerce has actually been in place since 1924. We are the largest business advocacy organization in the Commonwealth of Virginia with over 14,000 members throughout the state. Most businesses belong to the local chamber and support their local chamber. About 14,000 businesses belong to the state chamber as well. And our mission is to be the voice of Virginia business to those who are in the General Assembly and those who are in the Governor's Mansion, and increasingly for those who are in Washington that represent us. We put forward a proactive legislative agenda each year, and that legislative agenda is based on pro-business principles. We're nonpartisan. We don't endorse candidates for office, but we do endorse ideas and get behind those ideas that will help keep Virginia more competitive, and we focus on those ideas that keep Virginia competitive. So the Chamber has been the voice of Virginia business since 1924, and I'm proud to finish my third year and carry on that tradition.
Now, you didn't mention Blueprint Virginia, but we're hearing something about that. There have been some releases about Blueprint Virginia. What's that about?
Well, in November of last year, we held our annual economic summit, and we actually launched something we're calling Blueprint Virginia. And the idea behind Blueprint Virginia is to create a long-term economic development strategic plan led by the private sector, one that has a focus on regional economic competitiveness and statewide economic competitiveness. And it will be done through a collaborative process over about a 12-month period of time. And I'm really pleased to say that Paul has agreed to chair this effort, and I'm pleased that he's here today to talk a little bit more about Blueprint Virginia.
So Paul, Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
Chairing of that, as a business leader, how is Blueprint Virginia important to you and to other business leaders?
Well, I think it's important to all of us. First and foremost, for an organization to be effective, you have to have a plan. And Blueprint Virginia is really all about developing that plan. And then, of course, as you move through time, you measure your progress versus that plan. So what Barry has put together, I believe, is a tremendous coalition of local chambers, different industry segments, to really bring forward what are the common issues so that we can really maintain our competitiveness versus other states, versus other countries. So it's a real privilege for me to be a part of it. You know, in Virginia, we have had the good fortune of having economic expansion. We've been rated one of the top states to do business for many years. But what we see happening in other states is that they are now focused on how do they become more competitive. So while we've had success, I think the timing for Blueprint Virginia is perfect. And as a business leader, having a blueprint that brings together all the elements, education, technology, workforce development, bringing all of those elements together in one plan in one place, I think is going to be very important to us.
Now, Barry mentioned 12 months. What's the time frame for Blueprint Virginia?
Yeah, it's going to require a lot of work, and Barry's team has already put a lot of the plan in place. But what we'll be doing over the course of the summer is meeting throughout the state with regional chambers, with industry segments, really pulling together a plan that we would like to have finalized by about November of this year. Our goal is to be able to present the new governor-elect the state's business plan through the eyes of the business community. Because one thing that we know is time is valuable. And in Virginia, the governor only has one 4-year term. So this is our way of trying to help the governor hit the ground running with what we think are the important issues for the Commonwealth to remain competitive. So we have a lot of work ahead of us, but with Barry's leadership and the committee structure that he has set up, we believe we can get that work done.
Barry, I know the time frame is very important, so what else would you want to tell us about the time frame for this?
Well, we actually kicked this off in November with an address from a former governor of another state. In 2004, the Mississippi State Chamber facilitated Blueprint Mississippi and presented it to a gentleman named Haley Barbour. And Haley served as governor of Mississippi for 8 years. And he came to Virginia at our kickoff to say that he used the elements of Blueprint of Mississippi to improve the per capita income of Mississippi by 34% in 8 years. So the business community is used to long-term thinking. The business community is used to looking at issues of economic competitiveness, and allowing the business community through the local and regional state chamber, through the local economic development organizations, to work with us at the state chamber to develop a private sector-led economic development plan this year is a service that we think we're going to provide to the newly elected governor of Virginia, and also to the leadership in the House of Delegates and the leadership in the state Senate. So this is the year for us to do this. It's the year of an election of a new governor, and our timeline is to have most of the public hearings by the end of the summer concluded, because we think there are a lot of great regions in Virginia, and we know that Virginia is only as strong as Virginia's regions are strong. And so we're going out to the regions, we're holding public hearings, we're sharing with them how their region actually competes with other regions around the country, and how Virginia competes with other states around the country. And we focus on the workforce, the intellectual capacity, the connectedness and transportation networks within the region, and we also focus on quality of life as well as other issues that impact the region's competitiveness. Where there's already a great regional economic development plan in place, we acknowledge it and we hear what they think is important to their region in the future. And we're looking for statewide themes, David, because we think that we can pull out the statewide themes and help develop a statewide strategy and help promote Virginia and those issues that impact our competitiveness. We've been fortunate as being ranked one of the top states to do business. I think it's because of the business leadership in both parties that Virginia has had such a high ranking.
So the blueprint, you talked about Mississippi, the former governor talked about an 8-year period. Is the blueprint that's being worked on a 4-year kind of blueprint? Is it 8 years, or does it, so when it's completed, how many years is it serving?
Well, it's going to be a dynamic blueprint. I mean, we'll constantly be looking to update it, but we would like it to be at least 4 years. But most times when you're putting together a strategic plan, it's a 5 to 10 year planning horizon so that you can begin to do the things today. But some of these areas like workforce planning, they take years to put in place and to see the results of. So when we think about a long-range strategic plan, we're talking 5 to 10 years. But that doesn't mean, I guess really what it does mean is the governor, while they have a 4-year term, time is very important and we need to try to advance as quickly as we can.
You mentioned some of the issues, I believe, already, but what sort of issues will you be looking at? You know, we'll tell our viewers that we're having this conversation on Monday before the Wednesday reconvene day. There have been all kinds of legislative issues. By the time the program is airing, the reconvene day will have occurred, and they'll know what's happening on some issues. But what sort of issues will the blueprint be seeking out?
Well, let's talk about a current issue that's much been the focus of this General Assembly session. We anticipate after the veto session there will be a bill that the governor might look favorably on for transportation funding. It's an issue that impacts every region of the state. And we believe at the State Chamber that it's one of the most important bills that can be concluded this General Assembly session, because Virginia has to be connected to the outside world, and we have to invest in our ports and we have to invest in our highway transportation systems, and this General Assembly and this governor are working on a plan to do that. So we think that while this is an important step forward, we're asking the question, what do we want the transportation system in Virginia to look like 8 years from now? What do we want it to look like 10 years from now? And that's why Paul was suggesting, and we're looking at a longer term horizon than just 4 years, David. We think that we need to be considering transportation in 8 to 10 year periods and need to be setting out aspirational goals for 8 to 10 years. So when we go to a region, we ask where do they want to be 8 to 10 years from now in transportation, as well as other areas of economic competitiveness, including education and workforce training. And something that we haven't mentioned today, but that's the health care within Virginia, and it's the profile of Virginians as it relates to a healthy workforce. So we're doing more than just focusing on transportation. We're really focusing on the people in Virginia and looking and asking the right questions about what do we want to look like 8 to 10 years from now in these big, important issues of economic competitiveness.
You know, some of our viewers may be saying, well, you know, in our region we have our own economic development plan, and what's the state doing and looking at this? And so how do you see working together with the regions, probably most of whom have some, maybe don't have a blueprint, but they've got some idea?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, because there's a lot of great work already happening in the local community level, and what Barry's Blueprint Virginia plan is designed to do is bring forward, you know, really the best ideas that are happening in each community and really use that as a source of strength. I mean, let's identify, you know, the strong attributes that we have. I mean, there's a reason why we've been one of the most competitive states to do business, because we have many pro-business policies at the local level. How do we bring that forward and share that across the state so that we can make sure that every part of Virginia is competitive and not just a certain region? So really what we're trying to do is make sure that we have a plan that is multi-regional, it's across the Commonwealth, so that everyone can participate and have jobs and growth and opportunities for their children as they move forward in time.
And just to build on what Paul is saying, this is really not a top-down plan, David. This is really a bottom-up plan. And we are looking to the regions for their best ideas. Some of them have already finished visioning plans, and we are going into those regions and asking them some strategic questions. In fact, we have a survey that is being issued to those who are willing to participate, and I think that we'll be able to show those questions to our viewers in a little bit. And we really ask them questions about what they think are the most important issues facing Virginia. And we ask them questions about what they think the next governor's top economic development priorities should be. And then, of course, we ask them what they think their top regional priorities should be. And then we ask, finally, what ideas do they have for Virginia becoming more competitive in the future. And we've had, just to give you an example, thousands of people participating in this process. So we kicked off in November.
Already
yes,
thousands.
we've kicked off in November.
Yeah.
We've held public hearings in the Valley. We've held public hearings in the southern part of Virginia. And we have them scheduled throughout Virginia in the months of April, May, and June. In the month of February alone, we had over 600. In the month of March, we had over 1,000 people participate in this process. We just finished a successful public hearing up in Charlottesville. So we're hosting these around the state, and we would really like to invite the viewers to feel some ownership in this process and know that they can help us shape the future of Virginia's economic development policy. And they can do so by participating either directly in the survey or participating in one of the local regional chamber events where they're hosting us for Blueprint Virginia.
Excellent, excellent. Let me move to another subject in all of this. Whether it's our own children or whether it's our interns that we have working with us, and I was privileged to have 4 this legislative session, and they're looking for jobs.
Yeah.
And jobs appear to be more difficult for college graduates now than they did in any of our times when we were graduating from college. So is Blueprint Virginia going to be in any way looking at this emerging workforce and helping them?
Well, you know, I am a father of one son who just graduated college, and I have a daughter who's in college. So this is a really ripe issue for me, and this is one area where I'm particularly pleased that Blueprint Virginia is going to take a close look at, and that is workforce planning. You know, we have a lot of kids in school today and getting degrees. What we need to do is look at what are the emerging opportunities in Virginia, and are we guiding our students into those areas? You know, I've got some friends in healthcare whose sons and daughters have become doctors and have left the state to go to other regions of the country. So we really need to spend a lot of time over the course of the summer really looking at where are the future opportunities for our young people. And are we directing our young adults into those areas of study so that they will be able to stay in our communities, find good work, and give back to the communities so that they don't have to leave. And whether you're in Northern Virginia or whether you're in Southside Virginia, you know, we want people to feel like they can stay home if that's what they want to do to give back to that community. I think this is going to be a very important part of this Blueprint Virginia study, and it's one that hits particularly close to home to me with a son and a daughter who are at that age. So I'm really hopeful that we'll be able to say these are the areas of innovation, these are the areas of study, and this is really how we need to incentivize our students to kind of focus on that discipline.
Yeah, we don't think that it's important just to go through an exercise. We want it to have real near-term actionable opportunities. Mm-hmm. And I know the business community is interested in action and actionable initiatives. So we anticipate some short-term initiatives that we'll put forward in our next General Assembly session, as we also encourage the next governor to implement some of these near-term opportunities that will help create job opportunities for Virginians across the Commonwealth. So while it's a long-term strategic plan, we're going to have some short-term recommendations that we think will help immediately with those looking for jobs and those seeking higher opportunities for their own lives.
And David, I would like to just add, as an employer, when you look at the age demographic of a lot of the industry in Virginia, yes. You know, it's aging out. And so as an employer at Dominion, I'm particularly interested in making sure that we have new, fresh talent coming into our organization, bringing innovation with them. So it's not just as a father, but it's as an employer that we really need to make sure that we've got a ready workforce. And as I travel around and meet my customers, colleagues around the state, workforce readiness is one of the key issues that they identify in terms of fueling their own economic growth. So this is going to be a real key area for us.
And Barry, when you were secretary and all those 150,000 or more jobs that were created, my guess is that quite a few of them probably were career and technical ed people who didn't necessarily have a 4-year college degree.
You know, we are finding that more and more businesses are looking for those employees that can excel in science and technology and engineering and math. And you know, 75% of our workforce does not have a 4-year college degree, but they're very involved in technical work and delivering a product or a service. And so it's important that we are encouraging the public sector investments to go in those areas where there's real job creation needs and opportunity. And I think the business community is best situated to communicate to our public policy makers, David, what the priorities are in the workforce and what the needs are. And we're seeing a lot more emphasis on this area of science and technology, engineering, math, and focus in healthcare as well.
You know, I think we've had the questions up once or twice on the screen. We'll get them up again as we come into our closing minutes, because as people look at these questions, have each of you tell our viewers how they can become more involved in this Blueprint Virginia, these closing months. Public hearings, going online, what would you like for them to do?
Sure. Well, we would really like for the viewers interested in impacting the future of Virginia to go online now to our website, and that'll be put up on the screen, and answer these questions. They can also actually sign up, David, on the Virginia Chamber website to be on a regional council and participate through their local chamber.
Oh,
they can also sign up to be on an industry council. So if they have a strong interest in business climate or workforce or education, they can sign up to be on those industry council initiatives, and they'll be meeting in May and June, and we would welcome them to participate in any and all of those areas that they would like. Again, we expect to have 4,000 to 5,000 people participating in this process over the next several months. We've already had almost 2,000 people participate, and we expect to have several more. So we hope they'll go to our website, sign up for an industry council, sign up for a regional council, or just answer the survey questions and get involved, because it's citizen participation through this process that will make it really a strong document.
Yeah, and I'd just like to emphasize, I mean, one of the outcomes is an improved quality of life. I mean, it's not just about, you know, economic expansion, but how do you create economic expansion and at the same time focus on the quality of life, whether it's in the arts, whether it's in education or healthcare. It takes all of the different elements to create, we think, a competitive platform. And so that's what we really want to focus on this summer, and try to balance those interests out as best we can.
You mentioned right at the very beginning, Chamber's nonpartisan. We're sitting here, we don't know who the next governor is going to be.
Right.
We know that 8 members of the House of Delegates are already not running again. We don't know the exact makeup of the House. May I assume that the Chamber would be working to try to get all the statewide candidates on board with the blueprint, as well as leadership in the House and Senate?
Yes, David, that's an excellent, insightful question. The Chamber has already met individually with those who are running for governor and given them an overview of Blueprint Virginia. So those who we know are running for governor have been to the Chamber's office, have seen an overview of the process. They've been impressed with the organization around this topic, and both candidates have been encouraged that the business community would step forward during this year and put the work in to seek input from regional councils to help create a statewide economic plan so we can speak with one voice to those running for governor as to what the top issues are of economic competitiveness. We also are exposing this to the leadership in the House and the Senate, and we look forward to working with them in the months to come, as well as presenting it to them before the next General Assembly session.
Barry DuVal, the Chamber of Commerce, Paul Koonce, Virginia Dominion Power. Thank you both for being on This Week in Richmond. Thanks to our viewers. And do get involved in this process because it affects everyone in the Commonwealth. Thank you both very much.
Thank you, David.
This Week in Richmond is made possible in part by Alpha Natural Resources, an energy company dedicated to respecting the land. Alpha Natural Resources, we power the world through the energy of our people. Everywhere there are lighting poles, there's one more opportunity to save money. Intelligent Illuminations provides cost-effective wireless lighting solutions for roadway or area outdoor lights. Kanawha Valley Arena, Virginia's cowboy town, hosts Civil War reenactments, ATV rodeos, mud bogs, diesel truck pulls, and high school rodeo finals. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the voice of the Virginia business community, working in legislative, regulatory, and political arenas to promote the free enterprise system. Additional support is provided by these sponsors. And by the members of Virginia's public television stations. Thank you.